Good evening, Gabby.
Good evening, Terry, and welcome all to part 7 of our weekly podcast, The Curran View, with the idol of Hillsborough, Terry Curran.
Yes, good evening again, and it's nice to be speaking to you again.
Yeah, always is, Tel. Beans, it's episode number 7, and we always talk about your favourite number or your favourite number 7. Your number 7 for Sheffield Wednesday on Saturday scored a goal of sublime brilliance, didn't he?
He did, and it looks like a good signing for Sheffield Wednesday. What is he, 26, been at Cardiff. I think Bruce fetched him into the club. But looking at him, you don't know whether the kid has had a fair crack at work, because in football, a lot of players will tell you it's not that you're not good enough for the team. Sometimes without being rude to the manager, it's his opinion, and if they like you, sometimes, and if they don't like you, then they'll not pick you. So, but looking on that first game, he looked terrific to me.
And you're absolutely right. And it's not just like with the managers that might not fancy you, because with change of managers these days, I mean, it's not uncommon for some clubs to have 2 managers in the same season. But it's the players that you've got around you and the way that the team plays. And some styles are not conducive to some players, and some styles are very conducive to others, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, that is a terrific point, that Paul. That it is a terrific point. I mean, when managers signing players, sometimes they're signing them for the manager's philosophy, and I understand that, because he's the manager, he'll want to play a certain way. But sometimes when they sign that particular player or certain player, he might not fit into that plan. When he gets there, people say, they take time to settle in, and sometimes that's probably the reason why. Because, like I say, it'd be playing to a different format to where he was playing at previous club. When I saw him towards the end of last season, Avis, and I thought to myself, I wonder why he's not been in the team. But again, like I say, it's not necessarily down to the player. Sometimes it is down to the manager not fancying him.
Yeah, there are so many different factors that you have to look at these days, and the contracts that some of these players sign today are quite ridiculous in some instances, and he could have something like that in his contract that prevented the manager from picking him.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is, when you look at some clubs, they'll be on a bonus scheme where, if once they get near to that trigger, so whether it's 30 games, 20 games, or 10 games, when that player goes to that club, the owners or the chairman of that club might turn around and say to the manager, we don't want you to play him anymore, because he's got a £20,000 or £50,000 or £100,000 signing on fee, and they want to save that money maybe to put to another transfer. You don't know, but it's little things like that, like you're saying, stop certain aspects to players giving games sometimes.
Yeah, and another thing that I used to do when I used to coach and manage my youngsters, and I took it from Test Match Special with Brian Johnson, when he used to have the champagne moment. I nicked it and turned it into the magic moment, and I used to give it to a player who produced the magic moment of that weekend. Now, for me, this weekend, the magic moment trophy, if I was giving it out, would be to Tom Lawrence for his brace last night. I thought that both goals were brilliant.
They were, and I'm very impressed with Derby County. I mean, not only that, they've got a manager in Philip Cocu. To get that type of manager to play in that league is a great signing for them. The goal itself is a fantastic goal, the first one. But when you analyse it, I mean, I've always said to you about defending. It didn't about people organising. It's players making mistakes. And when you look at the goal, the first goal, what is this? I mean, I want people to play and I want people to express themselves, but that's not expressing yourself near your own goals. Trying to knock it back to the goalkeeper with your shoulder. Yeah. Right. But Lawrence had a lot of work to do, and to be able to flick it up and then volley it in was tremendous. And his second goal, to shift it from his right foot to his left foot and then clip it back across the goal. The goalkeeper's left hand side again, fantastic, great finish, and I was very impressed with Derby County.
And again, so was I, and I was impressed with them last season. Okay, they've lost a couple of players. They've lost Mason Mount and Harry Wilson. It looks as though Harry's going into Bournemouth this season on another season's long loan. But Tom Huddleston come in again early doors this season, like he did last season, and I've always been impressed with him. He's one that sits at the base of that midfield and holds things together and sprays that ball around the pitch and lets the younger guns do the running around him, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Tottenham Hotspur, when I first saw him playing, he looked a terrific young player. And then he moved on to Hull City for about Hull City or West, either Hull City for 4 million, then on to West Brom,
Yeah,
and then Derby County. But he's got all the natural ability in the world. Now, when I talk about when you're signing footballers and not athletes, he's typical of a footballer.
yep.
But I mean, I don't see him every day, and I only see him on television. Now, footballers, you have to be fit. That's one thing you have to be. Now, I don't know if he's carrying excessive weight. I don't know if he's doing things what he shouldn't be doing at a football club. But a player with his natural talent and fit should be in that Derby County team or whatever club he's at, because he's the type of player what can play the ball forward with good, accurate passing. He's that type of player. And you're right. He looked the part again last night. Now maybe Philip Cocu will be the one what brings it out of him. Now, I think he had a problem with a young baby. I'm sure he lost a baby. I'm sure he did on that lines or something, which obviously put him. It's like a concentration
Yeah.
because of the problems he had with all that scenario with the family. That didn't help him at all. But he's got natural ability, and like all players, what's got good ability, they have to be fit. And especially in today's modern day, because the drinking and the eating is not like it were in yesteryear.
What was it like in yesteryear? And let's go back in a time capsule to the great managers that you played under and managers in those days that you would have liked to have played under that you didn't.
Well, I would always wanted to play under Brian Clough. I
Yep.
mean, I'll never forget the day I finally signed for him, and Stan Anderson said to me, "We're going down to Nottingham tomorrow. We're going to finally speak to Brian Clough, and then you're coming back. We're meeting Everton, Sheffield United, and Tottenham at Mansfield because the reserves are playing there. And then now we're going to have half an hour intervals to speak to the three other managers." But I knew for 6 months I was going to be signing for Brian Clough. But the day I met him, they played Rotherham. It was a Wednesday. We set off down in the afternoon. Got round down there for about 2 o'clock. Met Brian Clough with Alan Hill and the then chairman, Mr. Brian Appleby. I remember Clough saying to me, he said, "Young man, sign here and I'll make you an England player." And I said, "You no need to bother. I'll make myself an England player." I said, "And not only that, I'll get you promotion." The chairman, Terry, "I'll buy you a new suit." I said, "I'll keep you to that." Anyway, uh, as I got the contract, I'd asked for, I think it was £90 a week. He said, "I'll give you 120. So I'm thinking to myself, why didn't I ask for 120? Why didn't he give me 200? But before I signed, he said something to me, and I said to him, "Well, I'm not signing unless I'm playing on Saturday. We're playing Notts County." He said, "Oh, you'll be playing." Anyway, that night I stayed down to watch the game. They beat Rotherham either 5-0 or 5-1. He took me straight in and he took me over to Martin and Neil and said, "I've signed him to take your place." You know, and even though I'd been asking to, I wasn't going to sign unless I was playing on the Saturday. It embarrassed me a
Yeah.
little bit when he took me over to Martin O'Neill. But on the Saturday, we played Notts County. He left Martin out, I played, and we got beat 1-0. I never felt as, and I'm thinking to myself, I hope this is going to get better from now on. As it happens, it did. But there were little things like that. Malcolm Allison tried to sign me. I don't think I would have wanted to play for Malcolm Allison. Him and Terry Venables at the time. Venables, yeah, but Malcolm Allison would always looking to find ideas
Yeah.
to, I think, improve him and not the club.
Hmm.
Uh, when I look at the managers, all the managers I played for, you couldn't have asked for when before you play for them. Thinking, well, I couldn't have asked for any better managers to sign for me. When I signed for the teams I signed for, the Dock at Derby, McMenemy at Southampton, they're all big names. Jack at Sheffield Wednesday, then I went up at Everton. So no, I wouldn't have said I would like to play for anyone other than them I played for. But team wise, I've always wanted to play for Sheffield Wednesday.
Yep.
But other than that, would have been Manchester United, and I nearly signed for them when Ron Atkinson was manager of Man United.
Now, Malcolm Allison, what team would that have been? Would that have been the Man City team or Crystal
No,
Palace at the
it was
time?
Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
I was playing for Doncaster, and they came up to Darlington. And remember the big hat he used to wear?
Yeah, dude, that fedora.
There was in the director's box. And I mean, in those days, Darlington, what, with 2,000 people there. And there was a big roar. When you turned round, there was something gone off in director's box. Malcolm Allison sat down in a chair in the director's box. And it must have collapsed, and his hat had fallen off. So, but no, he was at Crystal Palace, Malcolm Allison, at that time.
But he was a big character. He used to have the big cigars as well, didn't he? He was a larger than life character.
Big cigars, champagne, and he'd always got a Playboy girl on his arm.
And of course that big overcoat that he always used to wear, a big overcoat as well, didn't he, Malcolm?
You needed those in them days, Paul, because at the end of the day, the winters used to be really, really cold. I mean, they're not as cold now, but you needed to be wrapped up in those days. These players today will never be playing on snow like we did.
How would players of the 70s, managers of the 70s, look at players, the modern day players that go out in gloves and sometimes even in August and September? It looks ridiculous.
Well, I get what you're saying on that side, but I remember being at Southampton. We were playing at Reading in a cup competition. And in the middle of January, you used to collect a long sleeve shirt and a short sleeve. And I put the long sleeve on, and I remember me going back mad and saying, get that off and put your short sleeve on. And you're thinking to yourself, it's absolutely freezing, but they want you to go out and get warmed up prior to a game.
Yeah.
Now, once you get running about, you soon forget all about the coldness, and I do mean that. But I look at players. If a player is happy putting a pair of gloves on, it's all right by me. But other people get annoyed with it. I understand that. But in those days, it was cold. In today's modern day football, they won't play in those conditions practically. They're playing cold, but they won't play in the snow and things like that.
Yeah, I mean that we used to have the pools panel that sat, because famously we had that many games called off in them days. I remember one in the mid-70s that was on a frosty pitch, and that was Birmingham City versus Leicester, and Keith Weller wore a pair of white tights that day.
Yes, I remember that. I can remember them.
Well,
yeah.
Well, Frank says he only wore that because his missus found him in the glove compartment of his car.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, I think that was the first time I think you'd seen a couple of players wearing those tights come onto the pitch. But it did used to be cold. I mean, the weather now is a lot warmer than in our days. I remember the last bad winter we had was 63 when football was called off for a long time. But I mean, it's nowhere near as what it used to be. But like I say, in those days, you had to run around. You had to run around to keep warm because if you didn't, you'd bloody freeze to death. But the thing for footballers now, for them to play, they wouldn't play nowadays. They would not. They refuse to play. Managers, could they handle the players today? No, because Martin O'Neill's proved that with what's happened at Notts Forest. Yeah. They weren't happy with his training. They got rid of him. I think Cloughy found it very hard when the Premier League come in with all the money. What came into the Premier League, and then he couldn't be able to compete with the big clubs anymore because they got that much money, and it was very hard for people like Clough to discipline them type of players. Could the managers managing them in these days? They would definitely have to change their ways. Definitely have to change their ways. Players wise, I think it'd be so easy for us to play nowadays because they've got everything for them. The pitches are right. Uh, the dietitian's right. The fitness is right. They're not carrying excessive weight. Uh, could they play nowadays? The good players would play in any era, but I think that even the good players, they would refuse to play on conditions what we played in, on pitches, snow, ice, and that type of thing. So it's hard to judge anything like that, isn't it, Gabby? Because it's an hypothetical question in a sense that we would never see whether it would happen. And that's the problem with it.
Yeah, I remember interviewing Frank Worthington. I asked him, "Do you think that you players of the 70s, you were outstanding players?" I know maverick is a term that you don't particularly like, but I've always used it as a term of endearment because those kind of players actually fitted into a team. Of course they did, but they were the linchpin, they were the kingpin, they were the ones that nobody could tame. They're the ones that done things that the crowd loved and excited and got the crowd into the ground, then on their feet. And Frank says with great players will play in any era. And I
There
think
were.
he's absolutely right. Absolutely
He
right.
is. He's right. I mean, we'll go back to that Maverick thing. Managers put that label players with Mavericks
Yeah.
because what had happened? What happened? The managers, if players like Worthington, your Hudsons, your Best, they didn't. I mean, Best were a bit different because he were pulling sponsors in from all over the place. So the sponsors made sure that he played. If they didn't want to play a player, certain managers, what they would do, they would label him Maverick. What's a
Mm.
Maverick? He doesn't conform to our way of playing. He's going to do things off the cuff. It's not, we're not. Well, near mind, you're not. It's not fitting in with your way of thinking. These type of players are going to unlock doors for you. They're going to create goals for you. They're going to score goals for you. I mean, when you see some of football over this last 20 years, 30 years, some of it has been diabolical, but some of it's good. I mean, I still like there's some managers and some players you still like to watch, but there's nowhere near as many great players, especially English players. They've been dying to death since the foreign coaches have come in. We're getting one or two coming back, coming through again, and let's hope it's going to be on the right trend for us all because we all want to see the national team do well. But people like Frank, what could do things with the ball, or what could make things happen for the team. I mean, wherever Frank went and Hudson, they were always successful,
Yeah.
always successful. So every team they played at, not every manager when they left that team, their team did well. If you analyse and have a look at that deeply, you'll see that some manager when certain players left, like the Stoke, when Hoodie left Stoke, they started to drop down again. Why? Because once he left, the others wanted to leave. They don't want to be there if they're not competing for cup competitions and leagues. And in those days, Stoke were a difficult team to play. And I mean, they even signed Peter Shilton. So they were going they were going about wanting to win the leagues in them days.
Yeah.
Stoke City.
One of the phrases and tags that I disliked, and I've never, again, I get why they did it, and for those reasons that you've just given, when they used to tag players like that, luxury players, I did
Oh,
really dislike that, really disliked it.
it's an outlet for
Yeah,
them. It's an
exactly.
outlet for the manager not to play that play if he
Yeah, it
doesn't want
is.
to play him or he doesn't like him,
Yeah,
because they players, some managers. Now, listen, the guys, nobody will convince me of it. I've seen it. I've been at football clubs. I've seen players what should be playing and not get picked because of certain things like you've just said,
yeah,
a luxury player. What is a luxury player? Somebody what's not strolling about. No, somebody what's strolling about, what's thinking about the game, finding a position and creating space. I used to hear it said, "He's lazy." Him.
yeah,
No, he's not lazy. He's
yeah,
finding space.
yeah,
Now, if players can't find him the ball, uh, and if they got him the ball, and he would then be able to play other players in, it's just an excuse for them. They want runners. What can run all day?
yeah.
That will never work. Paul, it will never work. That people, if you've got to get the right balance of a team, and if you can get a Frank Worthington in your team or a Alan Hudson, you look at the great teams; they've all had that type of player. I mean, you can say Messi is on an upper level or 2 levels from Worthington. Right. But he's only been on that because he's got players around him, what are all world class players in his team,
Yeah.
and he's been allowed to express himself. Frank and Frank will tell you himself. Some managers would leave him out, blame him for goals conceded when he's a striker.
Yeah.
And they will get on his back, and then sometimes they'll be thinking, "Shall I do this and shall I not do that?" Fans don't understand what goes off in the changing rooms and on the training pitch when managers are having a go at certain players, because it's always the individual. Matt Letizia, here's a prime example. Love Matt Letizia, should have had more England caps. But when you look at him, even in this day and age, always carried a little bit of weight.
Yeah.
But he kept Southampton up for years. Not other managers. It was him, because they weren't a good team. The goals he scored for that team, that club, were phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So when they label the players as a luxury player, I've never seen a luxury player. I've seen great players. I've seen bad teams, and I've seen average players around that bad player, great player.
The phrase that I love, and the phrase that I would give to those players, and I listened to, I think it was one of the reviews of the game last night. They was talking about Tom Lawrence, and they seem to, whether it was Tom that come out of it, what he said it, or the commentator, I can't remember. But looks as though the boy's been given a free role. No, I like that. I love that. You give your player, that player that can create it, the freedom to express themselves and go wherever on that pitch they want. And that's what Borley did to Letizia. Alan Ball said to Matt, I mean, they both loved each other in equal amount, same as you, and same I do with Borley. And all Borley said, when you get the ball, give it Matt, we play from Matt. And that seems to be the most sensible thing that you can do when you've got a player of immense talent. Give him the ball and let him roam.
Well, it was Lawrence what said it. The interviewer asked him the question, and he said, he's given me more freedom to go and express myself. That's the question.
Yeah.
Is the manager confident? I've tried to get through to people for years now. Is giving that type of player the confidence to go and express himself, to create the goals, to try and score goals, to make things happen. But no, they don't want that type of player in the team. They want everyone to be able to work for the team. But you've got to be able to have a player what can unlock the door. And it was Lawrence what turned around and said, it's early doors yet, whether the manager's going to give him that freedom to keep going and express himself. Because if he does, and Derby have a good season, this kid can be, watching him on last night's performance can be a big plus for Derby County. Yeah. And you're right. It was a nice little smile, open, that this is going to be a good thing. He's going to let me express myself. Good players want to be allowed to express themselves.
And our two teams that we identified as being champions, one got off to a great start, your team, Leeds United. I noticed young Jock, he'd put the, give him the Ballon d'Or now to, was it Hernandez, the Leeds player? He'd done a double nutmeg, and so young Jock was really happy. And my team that I'd identified as being the champions, Fulham, got off to a right stinker.
Yes, well, I told you, no doubt my battle, I'll be in front of you by the time the season ends, Paul. No, what I like about Bielsa, when you look at him, I'm a Sheffield Wednesday fan. Jock now has become a Leeds fan because obviously he lives up with his mother and he's been living in Leeds and starts going to games with his mates, and I think that's what's happened. I think deep down he's still got a little soft spot for Sheffield Wednesday. But Bielsa, when he came to Leeds, and he come with this reputation. I mean, I knew of Bielsa. Bielsa's is my agent. I remember him playing for Argentina and managing Argentina. But the football he plays, a lot of coaches in Europe have all looked up to him. They were practically the same players when he first come to Leeds what 3 previous managers had.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm saying about coaching. He's coached them players. He's improved them players. Now, there's the athlete thing. What comes into it? He's got them players fitter. to play. Instead of signing athletes, he's got them footballers, what were just average footballers. He's improved the fitness with 2 sessions a day, and he's improved the philosophy of the team.
Yep.
And they've looked. I mean, how they didn't go up last year, I don't know. But I fancy him strong because of Bielsa, and it was a great performance on Sunday. They look terrific, and they'll take some stopping. I mean, I hope they get stopped by Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah.
I mean, they've set off on a front foot, and Kadeem Richards. It looks the same as what you're saying about Lawrence. If he's going to have the freedom to roam, it might be a big plus for Sheffield Wednesday. But you're right, Leeds. On Sunday looked terrific, and I think they'll take some beating this year. I'm not sure about Fulham, and the thing about the 3 teams what come down out of them all, I thought Cardiff might be the one what might bounce back because of they had a good run towards the end of the season. They weren't a team what came down. What had a bad season like Huddersfield, your Stokes and that. Once they, and it's very hard to take it forward again once you're dropping down into that league because everyone wants to beat you.
Yep.
I'm not. I like Fulham, but I'm not against Fulham. But I don't think they'll be in the top 3. It's early to us. I could be wrong, but for me, I think Leeds, Cardiff, and West Brom, and I'm hoping that Sheffield Wednesday get into that. And I think if Bullard is given a chance compared to some of them what's been mentioned, I think Bullard would do all right for us. I mean, I would have liked Arteta there, but whether they could afford to get him from Manchester City, but he would to come from Manchester City, that's another thing for the club to try and find and look at and try to find ways to get him there. If not, then I'd sort of give Bullen it and Chris Hughton and all the others what's been mentioned. All they are doing is just either keep them in them leagues, get them up, and then all they do they're coming straight back down again. I don't want that with Sheffield Wednesday. And I wouldn't want it with any team if what I supported.
Now, did you say Bielsa was your agent? Or did I mishear you?
No, he's my age.
Oh, sorry,
he's my age, 64.
I got you.
No.
I thought, blimey, I don't remember him being an agent.
No, he's my age, so I can remember him playing with Argentina. And in management, Bielsa, and a lot of managers, Guardiola's. I know. Cruyff, one of his idols, but Bielsa's another one. There's a lot of people copied Bielsa's way of playing football, and his philosophy. And when you look at it, he makes sure players are fit. Right? There's a difference between see people trying to coaches, and I know because I've seen it. I've been there when they've said it. Get me an athlete, and I'll line his football out, and I'll teach him how to. That will never happen.
No.
Get footballers, get them fit. And if they can't get round pitch, then get rid of them. That I do agree with. I do agree with that. But you'll never make an athlete into a footballer. It's the other way around. It's getting them. And people like Bielsa is doing that. And the other one is at Aston Villa. I'm very impressed with him.
Yeah,
Dean Smith.
I think he's doing a great job. I think he's recruited some fine players. A lot of people have, certainly in the Midlands area, have spoken about Villa doing a Fulham, whereas Fulham spent £100 million, brought in a lot of players, and it didn't quite work for them. Villa got rid of an awful lot of players, and I think Dean Smith had to get in at least a dozen players just to make the numbers up. And I think some of the players he's brought in are obviously going to be squad players, but I think he's identified one or two little gems there. And I think Villa could be a dark horse because I like the way Dean Smith sets his teams up, and I like the way he plays football.
Well, when you look what he's done, what players he's signed, yes, he's signed 10, 12 players, but some of them he's signed from what he had from last season. But he's looked at his signed quality. The thing what Fulham did, at Aston Villa, for me, Dean Smith signed those, or I've identified those players he wanted, and they've got it. At Fulham, I think the owner's son, who's a football director there, he's brought in players what he thought. And I think that disrupted Fulham. It didn't give them a chance to spend £100 million on players. He might think, we're having a go here. If the manager doesn't want those players, it's not going to work in first place. Dean Smith has identified the players he wanted, and Aston Villa, whoever's the football director there, he's gone uh, and got the players for him. And when you look at them, the players from good clubs, what's been taught football, how Dean Smith wants to play himself. That's another plus
Yeah,
for
and
Aston Villa.
yeah, I mean the one player that he brought early doors was Jota off my team, Birmingham. I've
Yeah,
always been a fan of Jota. I don't think that Birmingham got the best out of Jota because I don't think they played the football that was conducive to Jota's skills. He took a lot of stick at Birmingham. He got an injury early doors as well, and I've kept saying and banging on. This kid is still a good player. You do not become a bad player. What happens is the player doesn't fit into the system that the football team's trying to play. And I think playing there at Aston Villa with two players in central midfield with him, Jack Grealish, who I'm a massive fan of, and I get
yeah,
dogs abuse from Blues supporters, even my own family, and also John McGinn, where John McGinn is a workhorse. I mean, he runs further than my car drives
yeah. Well,
most days.
now you see, it's going back to what you said earlier,
Yep,
in the early part about it, not fitting into that team. And sometimes that happens.
yep,
You know, the manager, instead of when he buys a player, is he going to fit into the philosophy I want to play? Is he going to be able to play with the type of players I'm going to be signing?
yep,
And you're right. And he's gone to Aston Villa, different way to play what Birmingham do. And he's had a great season for them, or a couple of good seasons for them. And then Birmingham fans will say, well, why did he do that? Different type of football with different clubs is a
yep,
big thing. And I'm like you. I want Sheffield Wednesday to beat everybody. And I always think they're going to beat everybody. But if Birmingham City play Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield Wednesday uh, play Birmingham beaters with playing fantastic football, I don't slag Birmingham off. And I don't. I look at it and think, well, fantastic Birmingham,
yep,
great football. And it's like you with Grealish.
yep,
That kid is a fantastic footballer, whether he's for Birmingham or whether he's for Aston Villa. You see a great footballer, and you're proud to say, "Well, I don't give a damn." I will say, whereas an ardent Birmingham fan will look at it. Oh, you're not a Birmingham. Of course, you're a Birmingham City fan.
yeah.
I'm a Sheffield Wednesday fan, right? I saw Brooks destroy us up at Hillsborough, and I thought to myself, "What a player this kid's going
Yeah,
to be."
great
You
performance.
know, and it was a great performance. They beat us 4-2 up there.
Mm,
But the first thing I said to myself, "What a player! I wish we'd got him."
yeah,
I don't knock the player. I don't. At the end of the day, the team were better than us.
yeah.
End of. We've got to get it right. And with Villa having that type of player, it's only going to advance uh, Aston Villa with that type of player because he's going to be able to unlock the door. When he didn't play for Villa, they had a torrid time.
Yeah, they did.
And when he came back, he turned the club round and they got into players because they didn't look like getting playoffs.
No,
After the game against Sheffield United, you think to yourself, and then teams were getting results, and you think Grealish weren't playing.
yeah.
Then he came back, and not only that, Dean Smith realizes he's a player, fetches him straight back into the team. Some managers won't do it because they don't want that type of
Mm.
player in the team. He's a luxury player, or he's not what they want uh, because he's a fan's favourite.
And another great thing I believe that Dean Smith done with Jack Grealish, he made him captain. That's one
Now,
thing that Hudson always said about with Dave Sexton. Should have made Uddy captain of Chelsea, and I think that extra responsibility makes the player.
no, now that when you think about that, your careers and if they're being made captain of their teams, these great players
Yeah,
for these clubs, what the fans love. If they are made captains, the TCAs and all these players, it does give them that more responsibility to
yeah,
think, well, I've got to lead this club. And a lot of managers have held their performances against them, and it stopped them. Stopped them getting the captaincy. Oh, he's not reliable. He's doing this, he's doing that. No, make him the captain and see if they take that responsibility for everyone in and around the team and for the club when they're representing that club. Until you give that armband to that player, you never know. And I'm like you. I think that's a great shout by Dean Smith to give him that captaincy at a young age and all to lead, senior players. It's a big honour for him.
It is pretty much Jack's club. I mean, I think the boy's been there since the age of 7. He lives and breathes Aston Villa. Um, he's always been very vocal about his support of his football club. And you put something up on Facebook today. Who's the best player, local player that you've seen at your football club? And I don't think there's a finer thing in football than seeing a homegrown, talented player come through that you can identify as one of your own.
Well, we're not seeing it as much now because it's
Yeah,
come a global thing as football, hasn't it?
yeah,
But we all used to see a player from that. I mean, I'm about 30 miles away from Sheffield Wednesday,
yeah,
where Mel Sterling, Mark Smith, Johnny Phantom, all these players were born in Sheffield,
yeah,
And what I put up was who was the best local player to play in your team, but
yeah,
he had to be born in that city.
yeah,
And I think that identifies with the club and the fans
yeah.
that if they get an homegrown player in there, who especially is a good player, Sterling was at Sheffield Wednesday, Mark Smith, there were two great players for Sheffield Wednesday. It gets that rapport going between the fans and the players, and they're the ones that know how important it is to play for that team in that city. So I think that's a plus if you can get at least a couple into your team what's from Sheffield itself. So they either Wednesdayites or Unitedites,
Yeah.
and it helps the clubs getting the homegrown players through.
Well, I would say the best homegrown talent that's come through at my club, Birmingham City, um, would be Bob Latchford.
Yeah, Bob Blatchford got a good centre forward. He was. He went
Yeah,
in when he moved on to Everton.
yeah,
The only problem is with people like Sheffield Wednesday and Birmingham. I mean, Sheffield Wednesday is a massive club,
yeah.
but when the big boys come in, you Everton's, and they're going to lose these type of players. But it's nice to get these players through. It relates with the team and the fans and the club.
Mm.
And like I said, for me, the two when I was playing, there was Mel Sterling and Mark Smith. There were another one, David Glenn, but he did okay, Dave, but he didn't do as well as Mark and Mel. But when you get that player into that club, they'll come into the dressing room. I've seen them. They were only even young lads. They were.
Yeah.
Come on, we want to beat. We want to beat these at Sheffield United. Or we want to beat where they're playing because it's their club, it's their city, it's their town. You know, and I think it's good to get at least a couple
Yeah.
into your team in wherever you are, whether it's Birmingham, London, Leeds, Newcastle. To see homegrown talent in, it's good for the city.
And let's be honest as well, both Sheffield and Birmingham are big cities, and there's a lot of lads that are playing football. It shouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility that you could get a decent scouting network, identify those boys at a young age, bring them through your youth team, and then blood them into your first team. I get kind of in the Premier League where they're buying the world class player these days and spending £80 million on a centre half and a goalkeeper. So Lord knows what they're going to be paying out for a top class striker. But I think certainly in the Championship and below, I think that's where the focus should be with football clubs, growing your own talent.
Well, that should be a big plus because you don't see now Premier League buying players out of the lower leagues.
Yeah,
Why? I mean, if you go down and watch the third and fourth division football, all that is just kick and oof upfield.
yeah,
Lincoln have got out of that division, um, fourth division into third division or championship one now by playing direct football. You're never going to see now your big clubs buying from that because it's not their type of football.
yeah,
On top of that, Gabby, your big clubs won't loan their players out to them because it's not the type of football
yeah,
they've been teaching their young players.
yeah,
Now, for me, if a chairman or an owner of a football club were developing of trying to fetch good quality players through with good quality coaching, it will help the club because you've only got to sell one of those players for 5 million. It's going to help that club for 2 or 3 years. And if you can produce like Crew used to produce it, Crew Alexander, they used to produce and sell players like I don't know what, a few £1 million on players to help the club. If it's spent wisely and invested wisely, that club will be secure for the rest of its life. I can't understand why. I'm like you. I can't understand why they don't do this. But it's managers coming to that level. What the managers do, and I see what they're doing. They want to get themselves organised, prove themselves to get another club. They don't think about the club itself. It's about them. So it's trying to get that balance right for the club and for the manager, isn't it?
And yeah, you're absolutely right, Terry. And it's all about, unfortunately, in football, the now, and not laying down the seeds of fruition for a bright future.
Well, listen, again, we'll go back to Bielsa. Look at you. Look what he does. Majority of his players are young players. He's not frightened to play them. Guardiola, I know he spent a lot of money, but he's never spent over £80 million for players. I think his transfer record is about 70 million, 65 million. You know what? And he's not even in team. He's Ramirez. He's not on a regular basis. You know, he identifies players at 30, 40, 50 million, and he signs them and he improves them. That's a different kettle of fish to a Sheffield Wednesday fetching players through. But there's enough young talent throughout Sheffield and in and around Sheffield to get good quality players into that setup, right? If they get the right coaching, which will benefit the club and the players. Make no mistake on it.
That's what the name of the game is. Identifying them, recruiting them, and then giving them that field of dreams to play on. And for you, it's Hillsborough, and for me, it's for St Andrews. And finally, Birmingham City, they're playing in the League Cup tonight. We got Pompey away. Borley managed Portsmouth, and and one of our most famous centre halves, Noel Blake, also played for Portsmouth. Any memories about Noel?
Oh, he was an hard man to play against. He was an hard man to play against. You didn't mess around with him, even though, I mean, I remember I said to Borley one day when I was playing for Huddersfield at the end of my career, I said, he's crackers, that lad. He said, no, I told him to kick. I'd make sure he kicked you, you know. I said, well, he made sure he kicked me because he caught me once, and I'll tell you what, it's a wonder I didn't end up in the director's box. He hit me that hard. But he's tough kid was not. I think he's working in the England setup now. I'm sure he is.
He certainly was. Yep, he certainly was. He was certainly very, very well thought of. I've not really heard too much about Noel in recent times, but he certainly won, and you never know, he might just come back and manage Birmingham City one of those days.
Yeah. Well, going back to Portsmouth is what but it still is a decent club, but it was a big club in 50s and 40s and 50s for Portsmouth. It was a big club in the old First Division. So I mean, it's an ideal scenario for Portsmouth to take one of the big boys back on again. But what I hear on Saturday about Birmingham, it were all shots in for Brentford. And Birmingham had one shot and scored. But sometimes that happens in football. You think to yourself, how have we lost that game? But only time will tell, Gabby, whether Birmingham are going to have a bad season or a good season. I hope it's a good season for you, because at the end of the day, it's like anything else. Like when Sheffield Wednesday went to third division or the old third division, you know, you still support them and you'll always support them. But I think it's worrying time for Birmingham City for me.
Yeah, I would say in my honest, humble opinion, and that's all I ever do. I give my honest opinion. I say it as I see it. I think that we should have been 4-0 down at half time. Mind you, I mean, we did score a wonder goal, so it would have made it 4-1. We absolutely battered. Only had one headed. It wasn't a shot; it was a header on target. And I think Blues will do well to finish halfway up that league. I think that'd be a good season for us.
Well, when you look at it, when you look at Birmingham and you look at Brentford, there's a big difference in size of some fan base and the club itself. But look how much money Brentford have spent, and they've been able to spend it because, you know, it's been spent wisely. And what Birmingham have done, has spent wrongly,
Yep.
and it's got itself into that position.
Mhm.
And what I'm trying to say is, you look at them two, and then you look at Little Bournemouth. Was another prime example.
Yep.
When you look at them, they have spent a vast amount of money
Yeah.
for the size of that club, but it's been spent wisely,
Mhm.
and I mean wisely. They now can sell players for the 30, 40, 50. I mean, what's the centre half? What for him? £75 million now.
Yeah.
You know, and when you look what's happened to people like Sheffield Wednesday and Birmingham compared to Bournemouth and Brentford, where they're spending £15,000 in £15 million in the Championship, and Bournemouth in the Premier League spending 30, 40 million pound on players. It's unbelievable when you think about it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of the cart before the horse now. Again, in old money with the bigger clubs and in the old First Division, but these days with Sky and the money, it does allow the smaller clubs like your Brightons, like your not so much Brentford because they've not been in the Premier League, but those smaller teams, your Bournemouths and that, to punch pound for pound with the bigger boys, and that's the only thing that I would say that it's done good for the smaller clubs. It has given them that ability to match some of the bigger clubs.
Well, it's helped them instead to financially
Yeah.
secure them if the club has been run right.
Yep.
You
And
know, when you look at what's happened to Bolton Wanderers,
yep.
you know, they would have found the members to get into the Premier League, and look what's happened to them.
Yeah.
You know, by trying to go overboard with it. It's great to see him get in that league, and it's great to see him run wisely,
Yeah.
not keep spending and spending. Like, I mean, Fulham, to spend £100 million, they've wasted all that money when they got up. If they don't go up this season, they will start to find difficulties at that football club. You watch.
I guess football's like anything in life. If you're starving and you've got your last pound, are you better going and buying a carrot or a potato, or getting the seed, getting the knowledge and growing your own, because then you will be self-sufficient.
Efficient.
After you've eaten it, it's finished. You need those seeds and plant those seeds, and one day perhaps some football clubs will realise how important the youth structure of that football club is.
Well, I think some clubs have got to start really looking at it and trying to analyse it.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that's what Chelsea were going to do, but what they've done is grown that academy and just giving players to go out on loan.
Yep.
And they've even gone the other way and made fortunes out of it.
Yep.
But you're right, clubs have got to start looking at it and start to produce their own players. But they've got to be coached right, Gabby.
Yep.
Because even in the academies, the coaches are only looking after themselves. When I say look after themselves, I don't mean they're not looking after the players. They're looking after their philosophy instead of trying to get the best player, improve the player, and make them even better.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Tal. What we're talking about next week, anyhow, mate. So I think we're going to have to close our weekly podcast up tonight now. It's Birmingham City. The players are almost on the pitch. Who do you fancy for the Cup this season? Just before we go, and what we got next week?
Well, how can we, I mean that's a good shout again. But how can we predict in the cups? I mean, it's not like it used to be, is
exactly.
it? You know, your teams would want to win the FA Cup.
Yep.
Even the small clubs now are not even playing reserves; they're playing some youth team in them.
Yeah.
You know, so it's very hard to predict, to go beyond the top clubs now, because your Manchester Cities have got two football teams, so you don't look beyond them. I know it's boring saying it, but you don't look beyond them. What will we talk about next week? Well, the Premier League's up. There'll be something interesting in it. There'll be some managers under pressure already after 2 games in Championship. Some managers will come under pressure after 1 game in the Premier League. You know, it all depends. Whatever comes up, there'll be a player who may have done something spectacular, and we might want to be talking about him. It might be that somebody's done something wrong. You know, we'll be talking about that. But there'll be something interesting to talk about, Gabby.
We will, and we'll base it around the Maverick theme as well next week.
Yes, we'll have a look to see what players have got that type of player.
Yeah.
What we like and what the fans like.
The modern day Maverick and the Mavericks of yesteryear, and we'll pick our six greatest English players.
Right. We'll do that ready for next week.
Okay, mate. Till next
Okay.
week.
Cheers. Thanks, Gabby.
Cheers,
Speak then.
Tal.
Bye bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye, mate. Bye bye.
SRB Media.